Atheist Nomads, episode 307. Bad ideas are bad. And we went a bit long this week, so patrons are getting quite a bit of extra content. And the discussion at the end will be actually getting its own episode. That's what happens when it takes 2.5 hours to record a 1-hour episode.
The podcast you're about to listen to includes cursing and talking about hoo-haws. Please be advised.
Welcome to another episode of Atheist Nomads. I am Dustin. Joining me is Lauren.
Hello.
We have Aaron.
Hi. Are we supposed to say more because we got chastised last time for not saying more?
Oh, and then most of that ended up becoming patron only.
Oh, that's nice.
It went 20 minutes.
Well, you were the one who
or
was
14
like,
minutes, but
gosh, guys, you're only going to say hi and not say anything else? Okay.
And we have Krystal Moore from the Jack Mormon Comedy Hour here with us.
I mean, and just overall a good person.
Hi. do you guys want to talk about some things? Should we turn this into more of a counseling show? It seems like you guys have some stuff to get out on the table, and we have a table here.
That happens at the end of the show.
It does happen at the end of the show.
That's airing out the dirty laundry usually.
Yeah, it's behind a paywall of when I cry. Oh my gosh, Jason last time was just like, I'm not going to make eye contact and I'm not going to look at you while you say these things. And I'm like, I mean, you could totally say something now. Please.
That's all right. We all have those days, right?
Yeah.
You know, I got in the mail, okay, this was actually a couple weeks ago, but I kept forgetting to talk about it on the show. But this came with, I ordered some replacement cables for the lift system on the tent trailer. And I opened up the box and I was excited to see there was some product documentation that came with it.
Yay!
Until I pulled out Focus on the Family's bulletin.
This is so funny because this actually works out because Father's Day is right around the corner.
Well, do you think that's why they added
getting ready for Father's Day, so the impact
pop-up trailer repair must be a dad.
The impact of involved fathers. In search of greatness, our children are watching, raising unique children. Question and answer, with the question being, my wife and I get along fine, except regarding money. Is there any way to diffuse our arguments on this topic?
They did have a scripture in there.
Oh, yeah, they do.
That helped out.
So, Focus on the Family is... I grew up hearing their stuff.
Okay.
Got it at school, going to an Adventist school. They had it on the local radio.
Are they Adventist?
No.
Oh,
no, they are non-denominational, evangelical, like...
They're the worst kind.
Pretty...
They're all like, here, you're going to order a small part from my small business? Have some Christians.
Yeah.
Have some Christians?
Have some Christians in the mails.
Here's some far right-wing Christian propaganda to make you feel like you're not being a good father.
Right.
By pushing messages of toxic masculinity and... misogyny and homophobia and all that great stuff.
Yeah. I love how the problem was like we have we're stressed out about money. It's like, yeah, everybody is.
Right.
That's like the number one complaint in marriages. That's
is money. Finances.
These guys aren't going to be able to help you. That's called
Well, I was reading through it earlier before we started recording, and I was waiting for the person just to be like, I mean, obviously, you as the head of the household have the overarching decision. You guys don't have to speak together. You're the man. Obviously, you bring home that money. It's your decision.
You need to solve this problem.
Right. But when you read the question, it just says, my wife and I, or whatever. How do we know that he's not the one who spends a whole bunch of money? Like that. Because,
she doesn't even know.
Right. Like... It doesn't actually say what it's about. No. Or what the issue of the money is, that they're just having money issues.
Well, they're always vanilla. I'm subscribed to Kirk Cameron's weekly email newsletter.
Oh, wow.
Just for the laughs?
Just for the laughs, literally. No, it's hysterical. It's hysterical.
Yeah.
And
weekly? Oh,
yeah, it's a weekly, so I don't look at it every week. I just pop in there when it's got a subject line that I'm like, oh, we're talking about the war on the family, are we?
Okay.
Oh, the coming apocalypse. Okay, but it's always very like marriage, man, wife, households.
Right.
centered. And so it sounds just like that, where he's talking to the man,
Right.
and the good godly man, and they're great to read aloud in just like a really excited salesman-y kind of voice.
Yeah.
Well, and what's amazing is Focus on the Family. Like their pamphlets back in the late 90s, early 2000s was, if I remember correctly, it was 10, 15 pages.
They're like, well, we can cut the fat.
Now all
Now
prints...
it's just 4 pages.
Now let's just put in some vanilla complaint about some generic family issue.
It all prints on less than an 8x10.
Yeah.
Or 8.5 by 11. Sorry.
This reads exactly like Kirk Cameron's email newsletter.
Uh-oh.
If you want to know how much dads matter in the lives of their children, ask me. I didn't grow up with one. Wah, wah.
Oh,
gosh. I mean, if you wanted to be shamed, you could just go to Salt Lake City and just read the billboard ads about being a good dad.
As you're driving around town.
There are 2 types of billboards. There in Utah, there's it depends on where you're at. 2 to 3 types of billboards. In Salt Lake City proper-ish, it's custodial and being a good dad and paying your child support and cosmetic surgery.
There are a lot of those
Yes.
on the outskirts.
Yeah.
All opiates.
Yes,
Opiate
and then the opiates.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Oh, wow.
if you go to near St. George, then you're going to get, if you need help to get out of this polygamous sect. Please call us. But I mean, there's
Classic Utah.
Right.
What? Pixar didn't happen. I want to see that billboard.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's
wow.
great. It's great. I mean, it keeps you awake.
That's awesome.
Just reading the
As you're
billboard, you're like,
driving
oh, well, I can tell what the problems or
Driving between eastern Idaho and Boise, I mean, it's just billboard after billboard of scriptures and Jesus loves you and Jesus is the Son of God and all this. Where are you going? And it's just like, oh my God, there's probably 6 or 7 of them.
Yeah.
In between just Idaho Falls and Twin Falls.
Right.
Guys, get off of Jesus' dick. He's all right.
All right, so let's get into some news. The U.S. State Department is creating a new commission promoting human rights around the world.
Yay.
Good thing?
You'd think so.
You would, but this
I feel like anytime you're like, yeah, and then it's like, but what's the huge butt behind this?
You're right. So this is the Trump administration, so skepticism is well warranted.
Oh, yeah.
The commission will be defining human rights based on, quote, natural law. This is a concept that's been around since at least Greek philosophy, but it was co-opted by the Catholic theologians in the late medieval period.
I was gonna say, it was sort of maybe added to or used for different purposes than the Greeks may have intended.
Yep.
About the Catholic Church time.
And now
so many things were.
Right. And now Christian nationalists, most of whom are evangelical, have co-opted it again. And so natural law is basically, in the usage they're going with, marriage is between one man and one woman. Abortion is murder. The only appropriate place for a woman is at home with the kids.
Barefoot.
And basically any and all conservative Christian dogma that they want to push. The whole point of natural law is to be able to push dogma and trying to separate it from the church.
Claiming it's science when it's not.
Yeah.
Worrisome. It's worrisome how many people they can get behind it, because the government is just a bunch of dipshits, not a whole lot more intelligent than you or I or anybody else. Just people, people that got elected, and they managed to persuade so many people so quickly into one thing or another.
Right.
Like, they'll get so many of the super right-wing conservative Bible Belt type evangelical, those ones that are waiting for Jesus to come back and save them.
And besides
on
them,
board there.
Besides them too, there's also the people in the middle who are not really, they don't really go one way or another. But you say, well, men are stronger, so naturally they're the hunters, and the women are the caregivers. That's biological, and they're like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think they're trying to justify.
No, this is just totally,
Right.
That's that we have technology to help balance that out.
Right.
And if a man wants to be a caregiver, he absolutely can be a caregiver. If a woman wants to make money, she absolutely can go make money. There's no barriers. We're not surviving by the skin of our teeth anymore.
Right.
Well,
we're not worried about them dinosaurs. Oh, wait. Just kidding.
Well, they throw a lot of red herrings out into the debate that they know are going to, if you have religious beliefs that are faith, that are, rooted in God and those kinds of things, then you believe them in a very emotional sort of way, and that emotion can drive more extreme reaction than someone that doesn't believe those kinds of things is more practical.
Turn the mic. It moved.
Yeah, it did. There you guys go.
Yep.
I can hear myself again.
It moved.
It moved on us. That was
Is there a poltergeist?
Freaky.
That doesn't want Krystal to talk about.
I know, right?
This is the ghost of
Maybe
Joseph
demons
Smith.
are real.
That microphone is like, and a woman's talking, and a woman's talking.
I know, right? Even the technology.
Oh, gosh.
Jesus.
They say podcasting is sexist, but I didn't know that it was going to be the hardware.
I know, right? Jeez.
Oh, man. No, this is...
Oh, we did not realize he was so quiet for a second.
Yeah.
Oh, and now he's going to come in and start barking up some patriarchy in here.
He's like, stop talking, ladies.
So, but the human rights efforts of the U.S. in the Bush years was basically continuing what it had been for quite a while. Try to cut down on genocide. And promote democracy, even if it's at the point of a gun, which the U.S. was very big in that time period. And then the Obama years started pushing towards, let's get more equality for women. Let's stop killing gay people. Maybe give them some rights. This is turning that completely around.
Of course. If you could label this first 4 years of this presidency as anything, it is anti-Obama.
Right.
It is to undo all the bad that black man did in the White House.
It really is.
It's white for a reason.
It really is. But they spent 8 years
even if it's not Trump,
shaking their fist. Obama!
Yeah.
Obama! So that was going to be the case regardless of who the right-wing
Trump is just the perfect
president
puppet for
was. He was just... Yeah, it's just the ugliest example of it. And I think he got all of those people that aren't that politically involved for just that reason, because they didn't want another politician. I'm really worried for 2020.
What's really sad is that I've known people who hated Obama and didn't realize that the reason they hated him was because he was black. They tried to argue as about his policies and stuff, but we'd break it down and it would just be like, but this was supported by Ronald Reagan or this was supported by somebody else. And they're like, I just don't like him. I'm like, bam!
There we go.
Racist.
Right.
Yeah, he was a black communist Muslim atheist.
Right. Who stole the rainbow from God.
Oh, really?
You've been
No, a
seeing
lot of
that
it is that, right.
It's Pride Month, so everybody's like
conspiracy theorists, because all that happened too at the onslaught of the internet becoming a real thing that most people in their homes use, not just a few techie kind of people, just regular people. Yeah. Most people. I was totally off the grid. We didn't have cable TV when Obama was elected president, but we did have a computer, we did have the internet, and I know the kinds of things that me and the crazy person I was living with at the time were looking up on the internet, and the internet just showed you exactly what you asked for. So you could just fill your noodle with
whatever you were,
and you had no way of knowing how verifiable anything was.
Right.
So it's no wonder to me. It's no surprise to me that we ended up here. I'm just curious, how do we turn that around so we don't just keep pushing the pendulum in the opposite direction? Because that's going to give us another Trump or something worse next. Yeah.
All right. On that note, we are overdue for a break.
Ooh.
So we'll be back after these messages.
I know.
And if you'd like to get the show ad-free, you can find out how at atheistnomads.com/donate. But let's get back to the news. The Utah State School Board overwhelmingly approved the new science standards by a margin of 11-4. The science standards are actually good science.
Mm-hmm.
The 4 conservatives who voted against the standards wanted both sides to be presented on evolution and climate change. One member tried to get the age of the Earth removed from the standard. She lost.
Good.
Another wanted students to study whether water vapor was responsible for climate change rather than carbon. She also lost. But when asked to justify her vote, what Lisa Cummins said was Galileo was mocked and ridiculed. If we shut down that discussion, that's not critical thinking.
I love it. I love ignorance in the name of skepticism. It's like, you're a skeptic. You should understand. You should be skeptical of what the government tells you. It's like, to a point, but when they've got science backing it up, you can't just say, sorry, it's water vapor, or it's rocks falling into the ocean that causes the oceans to rise, or other random stuff.
You can't say that, but you can say, I mean, I don't know. I'm like on the fence on this one. I'm honestly on the fence because it's one of those things where I'm just like, well, without having scientific proof, and obviously we have some scientific proof to back it up, but then there's also a place to, I don't know, talk about other stuff that is science to talk, and why it's not right. Why, I'm not saying, maybe I'm playing devil's advocate on this one, but it was interesting because I had never thought about creationism ever, because even growing up in Idaho, like that wasn't what we learned in earth science in 6th grade. But there was a gal behind me.
You were lucky.
Yeah, there was a girl, I remember specifically, she was like, we should really be studying creationism. And maybe it was just because my teacher, who was a hard ass, was also a badass. And she was like, no, we're not going to put this nonsense in here. But then I was like, I mean, shouldn't we know about all theories so that we can all... That's the UU part of me. Yep. That's the UU part of me. It's being like, shouldn't we hear about everything so we can all decide to make up our minds?
Except for science isn't a democracy. But especially in middle school and high school,
right?
It's just teaching kids the basics of, understanding, how the world works, that we know, that as we know it. But if they want to go into college, or if they want to go outside of beyond that and study this stuff, it's called seminary, it's called church.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
it just doesn't belong in the public school system.
And if you want to change scientific perception, change the consensus of science, there is a process to do that.
Exactly. That's my thoughts. Is there's an avenue to challenge scientific thought, and scientists are always challenging their own theories and exploring more things. So there is an avenue for that. You have to, once something's been discredited, then you can't have it in a school being taught.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter if 1,000 people or 1 million people believe it.
Yeah,
it's been discredited. It'd be like teaching people that 2 + 2 = 7.
So
doesn't.
Right? Shouldn't we say that though? Shouldn't that be a discussion of saying like, hey, there's these people who think this. This is why it's not true.
You know what?
That's more of a social studies, I think.
Maybe. Yeah.
Rather than a science.
I do think that part of high school science should be, and some would probably argue this is more philosophy than science, but I think there should be a class in high school on critical thinking and epistemology. How we know what we know.
Right. There's for sure. I mean, I think there definitely needs to be. We need to have more critical thinking. But
creationism does not belong in a science class. I got it in my science classes.
I hear what you're saying.
Bullshit.
I hear what you're saying. What I'm saying is, scientific theory is great because that actually is critical thinking, right? Like you are teaching critical thought and the process through it, which is a science. And I think so like
everybody critical needs science class, and then like a world religions class, because I think it would benefit kids greatly growing up anywhere to learn about the other religions that people have everywhere.
Dustin's taught that class.
What's going on?
We went
was it
through
middle
those
school or high
classes.
school?
Middle school.
Middle school. So I mean, that's great that kids are exposed to that, because
and I do think
it really depends on where you were born on how you perceive the world.
Right.
It's like, these kids over here don't think you're crazy.
Right. Right.
And I do think a part of that class should include the different creation myths of the different religions.
Mm-hmm. But then again, you're right. Putting that into a school, you can do that in college. Just everybody's not afforded to have that in college, because not everybody is afforded to go to college. And it's fucking ridiculous right now to even
soapbox
think about going to college. I am on my soapbox.
That's
whatever. Everybody's on their soapbox on this show. But
I think the intention of public schools was to teach the public children to be viable, independent, contributing members of society when they grow up. And if our public school system at the point of high school is not taking enough people to a point of being able to literally sustain themselves, to think for themselves, to make decisions, to budget their money, to understand all of those things and how to operate in the world, then that's a real issue. So I don't think everybody does need to go to a university and study for 4 extra years to learn extra things. That's if you want to specialize in something, by all means.
Right.
But that public system was intended to get people, adults, to a point that they could function in society with everybody else. That, like, you need that.
Right.
The fucking society needs that.
Right. Well, and it's interesting because I feel like I went to Germany when I was in 10th grade. In 10th grade in Germany, you make 2 decisions, or you make one of 2 decisions. You either go to a trade school from 10th grade and you go on that track, or you go on the track that you're going to go to university.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, me too, right? It's like, oh, you can make this decision and you can either... And then after that, after high school, everybody is required to do some kind of public service or military stint. And public service meaning like working for a national park for 2 years.
I like that.
I know. Me too.
So it's important to, and I'm such a black sheep. I always have been. I want to be on the outside looking in the window. I don't want to, but it's important in any group to feel like you're a group, whether that's a school group or a nation. It's even more important. You've got a lot of different people. If everybody has to volunteer for a little bit, you feel like you're a part of something. You've contributed. You've literally contributed.
Right.
You've done your service. You've given that thing that you're supposed to give so that society gives a shit about you in return.
Yeah.
I think the unfortunate part of the United States is that every state is its own thing. Like we're all, well, I'm this state, so we're all a big part of the United States, but we're all from a state that is like, no, we're independent.
Well, they're all different years old. I mean, some of them are barely 100 years old.
Right, exactly. So, I mean...
And Idaho's not much more than 100 years old.
Yeah, for sure.
As a state.
Yeah.
So...
And
we're young. Yeah. We're young, and especially in the way that we organize. And I feel like because technology and everything else in the Western culture sort of evolved so fast. We were all still, if you think about Idaho, Boise even, the capital city just 50 years ago, it was a very different place than it is now. Not just because of the politics, but just the culture was still the 50s.
Yeah.
Right.
And now all of a sudden we're approaching Star Trek. And we've got these baby boomers that don't know what the hell they're looking at and have never been a cohesive group with these people in New York or these people in California or they've always just been their own little rural community.
Well, and I think if we don't look at it, politicians, although they're here to help us and everything, they're divisive. And they're if you really look at it, there's a reason why they do the things they do. They might seem stupid, but there's an overall arching reason they do the thing they do. And it's really about oppression.
Yeah.
Craig Northcott is the district attorney of Coffee County, Tennessee, and special prosecutor investigating the state's House Speaker. So, kind of an important person.
You would say.
Yeah. He's already gotten some scrutiny for claiming that Muslims do not have constitutional rights.
Oh.
Well, that sounds nice.
Uh-huh. But News Channel 5 from Nashville found a video from a Bible conference a couple years ago with some very interesting views to be coming from a prosecutor.
People at Bible conferences say some crazy shit. That's when all the crazy stuff comes out.
Well, among the crazy things was that he believes that all elected officials are ministers of God and that he's an idiot.
Oh, he said he was an idiot?
Yeah.
That's good. That's good that he knows that.
So yeah, let's hear what he had to say.
The social engineers on the Supreme Court decided that we now have homosexual marriage. I disagree with them. What do I do with domestic assaults? The reason that there's enhanced punishment on a domestic violence is to recognize and protect the sanctity of marriage. And I said there's no marriage to protect. So I don't prosecute them as domestics.
Yeah.
The strangest circular reasoning, like, to be in that man's head. Let's all just be grateful we're not that person. What a nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there's a good reason for enhanced protections for domestic violence cases. It's because most women are murdered by their husbands. Like, most women who are murdered, the person who murders them is their husband.
Or just, you mean domestic partner.
Yeah,
in a relationship.
Boyfriends as well, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a good reason why there's enhanced protections, including taking away guns, and it's to make sure specifically that women don't die. Now, that doesn't mean that same-sex couples don't need some of those same protections.
Oh, no, I think there's a very high statistic of, in fact, I just read something about a very high statistic about homosexual relationships being pretty high in the domestic violence.
When you wouldn't feel, I mean, I've been in an abusive relationship. I've been in one that was physically abusive, and I've been in another one that was mentally abusive.
Mm-hmm.
And even as a woman, knowing that I have every resource to go to and all the help, and I have a good family, and I have fine friends, it's hard. It's hard. It's a hard thing to just, like, admit about yourself, to admit about your situation, to talk to any about, to get help for.
Right.
I can't imagine how much more complicated it would be, how much harder it would be if there were that and the stigma of it being a homosexual relationship. Just, what a nightmare.
And especially if the DA isn't going to do anything about it.
Right, exactly. Like, so your home state is saying, like, well, fuck you. Like, yeah, you don't have these resources. This isn't gonna, and guess what? We're not going to prosecute, because basically what it sounds like is, well, you asked for it. So,
yeah,
which is, oh yeah, I know. I couldn't even imagine. I will say domestic violence is an interesting one, because there's no statistic that says that one, you can be, it's across the board. Mm-hmm. You can get into one if you are wealthy and have education, and you can get into one if you are not. The opposite. It spans the gamut.
It really does.
Mm-hmm.
It really does. There's people who need to control everywhere, and there's people who will allow themselves to be controlled. You know, their issue and mine at that time, at those times, was that I was skirting those sort of decision making things, and I did want, and probably a lot from the Mormon upbringing and coming out of that, and you know, if you don't have that strong confidence to make those decisions for yourself, easily going to find yourself letting others make decisions for you, whether it's a church or a club or, there's people who are followers.
Mm-hmm.
You just happen to find the right charming person to follow and they hide it from you well enough for long enough, then anyone can find themselves in that position where all of a sudden now here you are, but you've built this thing and you have all this, this life, and you don't know what to do to get out. Anybody can be in that.
Mm-hmm.
I just can't. I couldn't even imagine. I mean, since everybody knows, I too have been in a very abusive relationship, and it's shameful because you feel ashamed for not recognizing. I think that's the biggest thing, because for the most part, it's like,
I felt
it's not right off the bat. It's like this slow slide into it, and then by the time you recognize it, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed, and I can control it. I can do this. I'm fine. Because I think we're also a society of like, just make it work.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Make it work.
Come on. It's a sickness and health type thing, and like, you love this person, and oh man. So I
think of all the good times.
Right, exactly, which is a unhealthy thing, and I just people like this who get into power, that's what I'm saying. Like, you need to really look at your elected officials.
That's exactly. That's the freaking point of this story and the one in Utah with their school board. These are elected positions.
Mm-hmm.
These are elected positions, and part of this is due to not enough people understanding what positions they have the power to elect, who runs for those positions, and what they have the power to do.
Right.
I didn't really get all that information out of my public school experience, for sure. That's not to say they didn't try to teach me some kind of government, I guess. But whether I got a functional understanding of the government and how to vote for myself, for my own best interest, I did not receive that at school, for sure.
Again, that critical thinking comes in.
Critical thinking.
Right, and doing your research.
What the positions are. I remember as an adult, the first time I went and voted, and I was looking at the ballot, and it was the second year for George Bush. And now I'm, young. So I'm young in a conservative place. I thought I was Republican. I was confused. It's okay. I've come out of that. I had no idea what Republicans were even, or Democrats. I really didn't know.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at this this ballot, and I only recognize two things that I'm voting for. And then there's just all these other things and these people that I don't know who these people are. I don't know what these positions are.
I still do that.
I felt so overwhelmed by the weight of this decision. I just didn't vote for any of these other things because I just didn't know. I was like, I don't know, so I don't feel like I'm.
And
don't trust me to make.
Everybody else does that too, because you can see the numbers on the day of the election.
Yeah,
11,000 people from this district
voted. Those are the good
voted
people.
For the president. It's like 300 people voted for the local coroner. Why are we voting on a coroner?
Right. Yeah.
City council, highway districts. It's complicated.
And we also have positions that don't make any sense to be elected.
Like the coroner.
Right.
That should not be a medical position. Somebody
and it's partisan.
Needs to be.
Yeah.
And you would think the coroner needs to be a doctor. There is no requirement of that. You just have to be elected.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's very disturbing.
I could get elected coroner.
Well,
I'm not a Republican, so I probably wouldn't, but...
Why is the coroner a Republican or a Democrat?
Right.
That's some Wild West shit right there. That's some Wild West.
So is the
back
sheriff.
in the day, sheriffs. And
why is the sheriff a Republican, Democrat?
And that's the issue too, because here, especially, it's like everybody's just going to vote for an R for the most part. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Well, here we go, and then all of a sudden you get, you get a school board or you get the superintendent who's actually totally lied about her credentials, supports people who have been kicked out of their principal position for sexual harassment, and because she's a Republican, people are still voting her in.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, I just use that example because that just came to my mind.
It's a good Idaho example.
Right. She is definitely not qualified, and it's now showing.
Did your superintendent Rush has been let go and or is being he's retiring?
Right, but it's Ybarra who's the top person.
Yeah,
and haven't we slipped in placements?
Yeah, no,
since she's been so I don't understand how people aren't also looking at that.
And where the money's going is, my sister wrote an article for her local newspaper in Emmett because she finally pulled her kids out of school. She was just pissed, frankly, about where the money was going and that they weren't really. She was just upset with what they were doing, and not the teachers, obviously, but as a administration down.
Right.
So she started homeschooling, and the problem persisted, and she complains about it, with her friends. And someone from the newspaper said, "Well, if you've got all this," she's a researcher too. She's a researcher.
Yeah.
So she's
type of person
complaining to me and complaining to her friends.
My mom is
in
like
Emmett,
that.
With actual facts and statistics. And someone said, "Hey, write an article," and she did. Really well researched, talked about how much money is being spent and where it was going and why, why is it going to here or why is it going to there? And then the test scores, ended on the test scores. And I was like, that's clever of you ending on the test scores there.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, so it's his office leaked to the public that he was not going to be work. He didn't say he was resigning or that he was being fired. His office just leaked it because they're not supposed to really talk about that.
Right.
And the school board hasn't officially made a position, but these are elected positions.
Right.
Mm-hmm. We just have to elect decent people who are qualified.
For sure.
Well,
and if they turn, then it's your job
burn
to
them
kick
at the
them out.
stake.
Yep.
I don't actually believe that. I just want to make that very clear. We should not burn anyone at a stake for anything. That's crazy.
Violence.
That's extreme.
So last week, 12 people died in the Virginia Beach mass shooting. And in response, Governor Ralph Northam is proposing a number of pretty reasonable standard regulations to try to do something to stop mass shootings. And at the end of his announcement, he said this:
I will be asking for votes and laws, not thoughts and prayers.
Oh gosh, how much backlash should he get? Only because I live there and I know the community, and that's a military community. And if anybody said anything about guns, I can only imagine the ignorance behind it. I mean, that's a great statement. I read this. I read where it was at. Unfortunately, they're never going to get an answer like most of those because he died and no one understand. I mean, he resigned an hour before and then did all this. And we will not say his name because I think we shouldn't say shooters' names. I mean, they should, they're cowards and idiots.
But
I mean, that's the nicest way possible to put it. I don't know how else to put it.
When there's a problem, and the problem, if all you do is thoughts and prayers, the problem will continue happening. And if you look at evidence and see what's been tried, what has worked, what effect things actually have, if you try to reason through things and try to enact changes, you can actually change things.
Yeah, this thoughts and prayers thing is bullshit. I don't understand why people keep saying that. I mean, it's just like you being like, oh no, you're sick? Well, I'm thinking about you.
Thanks.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, that's a nice sentiment, but let's make some fucking change here so people stop walking into work and stop walking into schools and stop walking into movie theaters and stop, everywhere where people are starting to feel fucking unsafe. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. And thoughts and prayers literally means, because it comes from I'm praying for you or I'm thinking about you. Mm-hmm. It's taking the same sentiment of somebody's sick and you aren't that person's doctor, so you can't do anything about it, and applying it to real issues that you are actually capable of doing something about.
This is a very political episode where, again, what you need to do is look into your fucking elected officials and where they stand on things. And if you're tired of fucking gun violence, then maybe you should start electing officials who are actually going to implement some change.
Well, and I think it's people who run for positions, like not playing into that party divisive, bullshit, and just, really trying to come up with solutions to some very real problems. This is America. You're not going to take the guns out of everyone's hands. People will literally let you shoot them. They don't fucking care. They're extreme about this.
Right.
But 95% of those people, if you ask them, should crazy people have guns, they'd say, no, that's crazy.
Right.
Because they are conservative. So like if the left could get to these people from a conservative angle,
right?
Because it's not bad that they think more conservatively. That's a natural thing. You either feel more liberal or you feel more conservative. You either feel like, I'm going to eat this whole cake now, or I'm going to save the whole thing and just eat like little bits throughout the week. I could have this cake all month. Oh my God.
Right.
That's just a difference in people and the parties and the money that it can be made on both sides just preys on people in those ways that they naturally are. So if some smart fucking Democrats could be speaking to the conservatives in a more conservative, tactful way, and hit on those, they don't want crazy people to have guns.
We're not saying we're taking away your guns.
Exactly. Nobody's taking away your gun. You're not a crazy person. We want crazy people to not have, people that we know are definitely insane and violent, not to have guns. We want kids not to have weapons.
Right.
We want better mental health, which is a whole nother issue. But being like, oh, it's mental health and it's not the guns, is like, okay, fine, but then solve that problem too.
Yeah.
You're not.
That also puts undue stress on people with mental health issues. Not everybody with mental health issues is going to go out with a gun.
No. And I think we've had a lot of issues in the country since they eliminated mental health hospitals, since they eliminated asylums and people. Yeah. There are some people who need to be in an asylum situation. Right. There's some people that just need to live like with a caretaker.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And there's some people that can totally function on their own.
Well, and another issue that often doesn't get addressed is the atrocious state of the VA system and the number of people who came back from Iraq really fucked up.
Oh my God. PTSD, it is so funny how it's not funny. It's terrible how nationalistic and, America's great, we love our vets kind of mentality is taken over. And yet the vets are treated like crap.
Right.
Like if you are older, if you served in anything before Vietnam, then you're an upstanding military citizen. But anything Vietnam and after, you are just a drain on our resources.
That's not the case now.
No.
It's anything before 9/11. It's anything before 9/11 now. And the only reason why I know this right now is because I work in an organization that works with Medicaid and in-home care services. And right now, we are seeing veterans pre-9/11 who are like, well, I can't get in-home care services because I can dress myself. But if I was post 9/11, then I have all these different nonprofit organizations who are going to help me with finding caregivers, dogs, all these other stuff.
Really?
Yeah, because I actually talked to a veteran who was like, listen, I know that there's organizations out there, but if you read the fine print, these are all organizations who are helping people post 9/11. And any veteran before that point, you have to be not able to really care for yourself to get any kind of these services.
Oh, wow. Really? That shocks me because those are the ones you see who are homeless all the time, who are, severely
The ones prior to 9/11.
Vietnam. The guys who got effed up in Vietnam mostly are. Is that
right?
like
And that's the whole point. Like that's the point now. Like
nobody wants to take care of them.
No.
Ugh.
And so the other problem that we're seeing now post 9/11 too is that the way that they discharge. So the government doesn't want to pay. And so the way that they'll discharge you so they don't have to pay for any of your mental health stuff is to be like, oh, well, I'm going to diagnose you with a personality disorder and now you have an other than honorable discharge and you get no VA benefits.
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
And that's how, and that's why you're seeing so many suicides, because they did something while they were in the military, which was a cry for help because of their PTSD, and then they get discharged and they get no benefits.
That's bullshit.
Absolutely. It's bullshit. So this is just another way, again, this is just another, if we're looking at the federal government and we're looking at our officials and we're looking at everything, I mean, I can't stress this enough in this episode and forever and ever, is that you have to start doing your research. Mm-hmm. You have to start looking at all these problems. You can't just say, oh, well, this works for this. Look at all the, because of course, all the pre 9/11 people are like, oh, look at all these benefits and all these things that they're getting. But it's like, well, only for those people who didn't fuck up while they were still serving.
Like
will
everybody
they get
we
that
know
benefit.
Who's ever served.
I think, again, I can't say this enough. Please just understand who you're electing and what's going on. And also on that note, let's just cut some people some slack sometimes too, like if we want to be friends, like not we, but in the general, like just understand everybody's going through some shit. And I never hope that anybody feels like I'm trying to compare my pain and my damage, because it's not comparable. It's apples and oranges.
Take
basically,
away from it is it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if someone does mean it that way. You don't have to take it that way.
Yeah,
you are in control of how you take the feedback from everybody else. You're in control of your perspective of that, and
it's a regular mantra of mine to repeat to myself. They're just trying to get by.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everybody's just trying to get by. They're just trying to do their best.
Nobody considers themselves the villain.
Mm-hmm.
Right, exactly.
Hitler thought himself a hero.
For sure.
Yep.
And that's something that's super important, especially as things are as divisive as they are right now, to keep in mind is nobody thinks they're an asshole.
Yeah.
I mean, like a handful of people know they're assholes and they totally, but even those ones are like, those are softer.
Yeah.
They're softies on the inside, those ones. They're just like, I'm an asshole.
Well,
but no, they're softies on the inside. They're little kittens.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. Some of those assholes are getting kicked off of YouTube.
Oh.
They have announced now that in trying to clean up the platform and make it a less hateful place, if you are advocating for the discrimination of a group of people because of you think you're superior to them, and discrimination based on grounds of race, gender, sex, gender identity, sexual orientation, religion, your channel and videos will be banned.
Huh.
I'm glad they worded it as carefully as they did, because that's a really touchy thing. And if I'm being honest, I think it's too late. It's too late.
They created the monster.
Now
they're
feeds
trying to
into their delusion that they're being fought against. That the devil is fighting them.
Right.
And now, because a lot of these people believe there's a real, if you can just like put it in your head, everyone out there listening, these people really, really believe there's a real devil, a real fucking devil that is here to just ruin your life and lead you astray and make you do wicked shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you really believe that was the truth, you would be doing the same crazy shit they are, because that's terrifying. I've been there. Really,
I mean, that explains
that.
the religious ones, but just the white supremacist ones. I mean,
well, yeah, I mean, not those. I wasn't talking about those ones specifically. Those ones are just assholes that are using that as an excuse.
But they don't think they're an asshole. That's the whole thing.
Yeah, well, they think they're superior,
right?
Now, this change in policy is also going to include demonetizing anybody who routinely brushes up to the line and penalizing people who brush up against the line in the algorithm for recommendations, as well as demonstrably false information like the Flat Earth movement, and denying well-documented violent events. So September 11 denial, Holocaust denial.
Right.
Those are also banned.
So I do know that...
Or at least demonetized.
Right.
Those are specifically banned.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do know that there was a comment when we talked about, or on the Facebook page, when there was something about, Facebook banning people and groups and stuff. And there was, and I just want to know what your thoughts are about these, is, now we're censoring, now there's a censorship, and now this is another attack and this is another win in their corner of saying, well, look, all these social media places and YouTube, they're against us too. So it's right there. There's the proof. We're doing the right work.
Yeah. I worry that I didn't read the statement when YouTube's done this, so I'm curious, and Facebook as well. Did that come out with some kind of apology for the negligence?
No.
Because I feel like
that would be owning it.
Exactly. The thing needs to be owned so that there's a general recognition that that a mistake was made.
The closest
that allowed a great portion of the public to be fed,
right?
Because they don't really understand that they're in an echo chamber of their own making. The hell that they have created on their
the closest YouTube went to an apology was acknowledging that as they've been trying to increase some of this enforcement, moving this direction, there have been false positives. So one example was somebody doing a history video about World War II, talking about German tanks. And he got in trouble for promoting Nazism. It was about the history of tanks in World War II. So false positives do happen. They have acknowledged that there have been some false positives and that they are going to try to continue to correct the algorithm because they aren't wanting to prohibit discussions of history.
Higgledy-piggledy, that's a bunch of tech gumbo that nobody understands in public that is just watching. That's the trouble is you've got most people don't really understand how a computer works. I barely understand the concept, and I'm fairly intelligent, but you can't expect to educate everyone on all of that. So I feel like, there's bigger issues in how it plays into their delusion of being attacked.
Right.
I think the left or the liberal portion of the public worldwide really needs to be thinking about how their actions and their companies and their media and their stories and their policies and politicians look to the other side that feels attacked. Because
I got in a discussion with some of them.
You're more likely to put up a cage, to fight, to
you're like adding all the time,
right? Like you're adding fuel to the fire,
exactly. By doing adding fuel to the fire. And I don't know how YouTube corrects this problem. I think it's great that they acknowledge that it is a problem, but like a serious PR campaign on why that was a problem, how that became a problem, all of those sort
would
of
make a difference.
I think it would make a difference.
Not at all. I got into a discussion on Reddit with two people who think this. It was the podcasting subreddit.
Okay.
One is a former listener. I think he's the one that left the 1-star review for the show, sometimes making him feel racist. I'm not sure that that's
It could
that
be.
was him.
That's his choice if he feels like that.
And the other one, I have no idea who this guy was.
Right.
But anyway, there are people who think this is censorship and free speech is dying.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's an attack on free speech.
Mm-hmm.
Then there are the ones who think that, and not just an attack on free speech, but specifically attack on the free speech on those who are not on the left.
Mm-hmm.
The claim was that they are going after right and centrist voices. Bullshit. They're going after ultra right wing.
Yeah.
There's a big difference there.
But I think what Krystal's saying is saying like, but
don't target
YouTube, right? YouTube
wing.
needs to say, hey, this is why it's wrong. This is why we're doing this.
Now,
and we apologize for having them being able to be on here.
The other person thinks that every conspiracy theory is the mainstream media causing it. He thinks that Trump didn't have anything to do with the Russians. That's all fake news. That he was exonerated by the Mueller report. 30% of the population believe an alternate version of reality. Those are the people who are complaining. Those are people who a PR campaign would be viewed as fake news.
Well, for some people, but I think what we're talking, I think
the 70%.
what we're talking about are those people who are in the middle who could be swayed either way. And by saying and giving a, I'm not going to say argument, but by actually saying, this is why we're doing this. This is why we're sorry we're doing this. Gets those middle people to be like,
helping them to understand, I think, how the public is persuaded through the internet, through social media. Like, we get that it does, but we don't I don't think the greater public understands the algorithms and how, when I was having believed many different kinds of things while the internet has been a thing, I have seen very different sides of the internet. My internet search produces very different things today than it did 10 years ago when I was a born-again Christian, or even 15 years ago when I was still just a virgin Mormon girl with no clue of anything in Weezer.
Oh, I thought you for a second there I was like, and the band Weezer. I mean, no, you were in Weezer.
No, just in the town of Weezer.
Just some old time fiddlers.
Some old time fiddlers.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So if you don't understand that the internet does that, gives you what you are looking for,
right, and
that it's up to you, really, really up to you, and how you search for things, how you word your questions. You don't know to even sort through that. And then on the bigger scale, like what Aaron's talking about, I think we can show socially through social research and history how that was a disaster. Why it's important to not give a platform to the KKK.
I don't think that's necessary, because 70% of the population thinks that getting Nazis off YouTube is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the other 30% are the Nazis that are getting kicked off of YouTube.
But that's what you're saying.
You're saying 30% of those people are all Nazis. I'm saying
I'm exaggerating.
I think 10% of that 30 are maybe Nazis. There's a good portion of them that are just
sympathetic,
silly gooses.
Right? Like
silly gooses.
Yeah, silly gooses.
Okay,
just need to
they're
be
the diehard Trump supporters that are never going to.
But
my mom's a Trump supporter.
Right.
She's a silly goose. Okay, she's not malicious.
Right?
Yeah. She's not a bad person.
She means well.
She genuinely means well, and she's literally. I love you, Mom. She'll never listen to this.
Yeah.
She's an idiot. All right, if we're gonna be honest,
I like silly goose.
Not silly goose is a great way to.
Yeah.
There's a lot of silly gooses out there. They don't mean. They don't. I don't think they're on Trump's side because he's against all this stuff that they at least know is definitely bad.
Right.
They've been shown that the right-wing politicians are bad. They've been shown that the left-wing politicians are bad. Yeah. And this guy isn't those things.
He's
they know
speaking
that.
real speech.
Now, they're silly gooses. I think most of them are definitely bad, awful people. Okay. Most of them in that 30% are probably racists or anti-LGBTQ.
But if at least we could get five out of them.
So
then there we go. We changed 5 people.
We gotta get some of these guys out of there.
30% are Christian nationalists. They are white evangelicals. They're racists. There is a significant portion of the population that used to keep quiet about unsavory things.
Yeah. It was called common decency.
They aren't
but now they're
quiet about that anymore.
Now they're not quiet. But I think what we're trying to ask you, Dustin, is not to be all or nothing on this right now. That's what I'm actually asking you to think about, because what you're saying is like, nope, it's not going to help. Nothing's going to help. It's not going to be.
Any of the other liberal left-leaning listeners that are, have right-wing family or friends.
Like, yeah.
Even our right-leaning listeners who don't want to have the big capital R attached to them because they don't belong to the modern Republican Party, but they do believe in the old Republican, some of the old Republican values and are alienated.
What my point is, most people are going to see this change in policy and inherently think getting Nazis off YouTube is a good thing.
Right, absolutely.
And people who think that getting rid of white supremacists on YouTube is a bad thing, I don't think can be reached through reason from Google.
But that's your opinion, right? Like, and
most
this
people
is,
that you know,
but this is our opinion too.
Yeah, but there's.
I mean, they're not going to do it.
Big world.
So
I have a whole Mormon family that would feel more like this is a violation of our free speech. And these are people that they don't think we should drink coffee. Okay? But
again,
they're going to feel like
gooses.
This is because it's kind of silly goose. There's some confusion going on. There's
the
a
same
lot of
argument
confusion.
people had with the Ku Klux Klan doing parades. People stood up and defended their right to have a parade because they had freedom of speech rights.
Now,
the platform has changed, but the argument hasn't.
Now, the part that needs to be changed, that I think is worth pointing out in some kind of a PR campaign, parades are something involving the government, and the government needs to keep neutral on that. And the government needs to protect your freedom of speech. Google is a publicly traded corporation.
Right.
No, I agree. I think you are in control of the... this is why I think it was negligent from the beginning to not have these sorts of... Nobody thought about all the fires that could start from this bullshit. We've been making these sci-fi movies for 20 years.
Do you know who I think
we knew these things would happen? Nobody wanted to put those regulations in because it costs money and that wasn't popular.
I'm going to be super generalized. I bet it was a lady who was like, has anybody actually thought about this? And they were like, no, you sit down. Don't you say that. But of course there was somebody who probably was like, oh, have we thought about this? And now they're like, shit, we should have listened to Sharon that whole time.
Not Karen, because Karen's a bee, but Sharon had some good ideas.
But YouTube's recommendation algorithm was specifically designed, and not even designed. It's
for a man by a man.
No, sorry.
Machine learning.
Machine learning.
It's machine learning.
Okay,
so
yeah.
They allowed machine learning to create an algorithm that would maximize view time. And you maximize view time to maximize profit, which is what the shareholders want. They did not take into account the social obligation to not promote really bad ideas.
Right.
Negligence.
Money. Oh,
and
here we go.
Realistically, a social negligence on a global scale. Like, not owning that as a real problem, a real issue that you fucking created because you wanted more money.
Yeah.
Because you could make the algorithm. You could get these nerds to write the code however you want, however you direct them.
Nerds.
All they would have had to do is the algorithm was created to maximize view time.
Exactly. So to have it
change
maximize
accurate information as well.
Accuracy would have done a huge thing. Now,
we need more puppy compilations and baby goat compilations, and we need less flat earthers and people claiming that gays didn't exist in Africa until the white man showed up. Whew. That's a fun one.
Oh, wow. All right. I think we've beat this one to the ground.
I
I mean, we could
less
keep
dead
going.
horses.
We could.
Less dead.
So, Idaho now has 2 cases of measles as of recording.
Oh, no. I didn't hear about the second one.
Both are in Moscow. These are the first 2 cases of measles since 2001.
Didn't we predict this?
Yeah.
I feel like we talked about like how close this was.
Everybody's been expecting it. They've had every doctor's office and hospital has measles warning signs up across Idaho because
it doesn't matter
so
if
close.
you don't go to the doctor.
So places that have been identified as to where to be specifically concerned is if you visited the diagnostic imaging and laboratory waiting room at Gritman Medical Center in Moscow during a specific 2-hour window, May 31.
So they know who.
They know the patient.
Okay.
Yeah. These are confirmed cases. They've been positively diagnosed with
What sucks is the people
laboratory
who
testing.
may have been working during that time and didn't know it and got
also-
exposed.
Also, his Trinity Reformed Church on May 26. So 5 days earlier, this guy was at church infectious and then finally decided, this rash is getting kind of bad. Maybe I should get checked out, and went to the doctor, and the doctor sent him to
And the doctor
hospital
said-
waiting room.
Yeah. Send them to a waiting room.
Yes.
Put on a mask. That'll help.
Go down to the hospital and get tested for this.
That's
When you think it's measles, you don't send somebody to a crowded room.
So the doctor's going to get...
well. Then maybe they didn't think it was measles.
No, a guy shows up with the rash. You're like, go to the ER. Don't-
Right. Don't be here.
It's Memorial Day weekend. Come on, guys.
Yeah.
No, this is the week after Memorial Day
And it
weekend.
wasn't the ER. It was, here's an order. Go get your labs drawn.
Yeah. I just watched the last season of Veep, and there was this whole thing about this guy, Jonah, who runs for president, and he's like Trump-esque. Like anything from the far, like anti-vax. Well, he got the chicken pox, and then it showed like where the chicken pox went, and it was funny because like they had shown where his campaign trail was, and they're like, look, it looks like a dick. And then it was like, and then you could see like all these outbreaks, and it's again in the shape of a dick.
Oh my gosh.
I was like,
Good show.
making
I hear it's a good show.
It is a good show. Making anti-vax fun again. It was good.
Oh, man.
It brightened my sad day.
All right, we got some feedback from Randy via Facebook. Yes, indeed, Florida has some crazy folks down here. We have a representative who has sponsored a heartbeat bill and has suggested that gay people be killed. Fun living in the South.
My mom's from Florida. She followed those missionaries out. Maybe she was trying to escape. She thought, here's some nice Christians instead of these crazy Christians down here. Boy, was she wrong.
Oh, man. All right, if we don't have any new supporters, but if you want to support the show, you can go to atheistnomads.com/donate to find out how.
And then you could get all the crazy, cool side stories.
Yeah, the stuff that gets cut.
Yep. You can hear it all.
All right, Aaron, what do you have to plug?
Okay. For those people who are in the Treasure Valley area and you want to come out and support a great organization, Pride Foundation, which actually ties in really well with what we talked about this week.
Yep.
And that's supporting LGBTQ plus individuals and going to higher education by giving them grants and scholarships so that they can come out with degrees to help support more LGBTQ individuals in their community. So on June 22nd, we're doing a unique backyard benefit. It's $10 to come and hang out and listen to some comedy, and it goes to Pride Foundation. So look for that at redmicecomedy.com, or you can go to the Facebook page and you can see the event.
Awesome. And Krystal, do you have anything to plug?
Just the Jack Mormon Comedy Hour is, you can look it up on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. The next show is at Liquid on October 3rd. And that's it.
All right. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And listeners, remember, not all those who wander are lost.
So much content. Like it.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Atheist Nomads.
Oh,
You can find show notes and contact information at atheistnomads.com. Follow us on Twitter at Atheist Nomads and like us on Facebook at facebook.com/atheistnomads. Please subscribe to the show in iTunes, Stitcher, or your podcatcher of choice. And while you're there, feel free to leave us a review. Theme music is courtesy of Sturdy Fred. Until next time, this has been the Atheist Nomads.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Look at that. Thanks. That went fast. That went very fast. My boys are going to be
2.5 hours.